Welcome to the Sen Nutrition Podcast, where we discuss horse health, nutrition, training and performance.
Welcome everyone to the next episode of the Sen Nutrition Podcast. You're with your host Bryan today, and I hope you've had a really good Easter break, or if you're still on holidays, I'm a bit jealous. But today we're going to be in episode 32, which will be an interview with the owner of S'Shaada Endurance Arabians, Saasha Grogan, and we're going to go through her recent success she's had with the Sen feed program for her endurance horse called Blue. And this will be a fascinating insight to how to prepare and how to feed through a 320 kilometre ride over a few days, what management is involved, and how Blue recovered through this period. How are you, Saasha?
I'm good, thanks, Bryan. How are you?
I'm good. So we've seen your social media posts regarding Blue's condition and absolute amazing recovery from this endurance ride. What was the event on the weekend?
So the particular event was the Heritage Easter Carnival at Blackbutt.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, it was 320 kilometres. It's called the Faraway Marathon. The specific event that he entered of that carnival was the Faraway Marathon.
And have you done that one in the past?
Yeah, so this was my fifth and Blue's second.
Okay, and was it the first time on the Sen full program?
Definitely, first time on the Sen program, yeah.
And your biggest difference that you noticed was appetite and the performance and recovery?
Yeah, so the appetite, when you look at him now, he doesn't look like a horse that's just done 320 kilometres.
Wow.
He looks not much different now compared to when he started the event. And normally, as you can imagine, after running for 320 kilometres, they look a bit tucked up.
Yep.
A little bit of muscle wastage has happened, but I felt as though he finished that ride with just as much energy as when he started the ride, and he felt like he could have just done it again.
Gee, that's fantastic. I find it very fascinating a horse can endure that length of work and performance over those days, and the nutrient requirements for them to perform and feel at their best and even to maintain appetite would be a juggling act. And with the clients we normally have, they're not working for that length of time. So Saasha, if you could outline how you went through the event and the times you were feeding and Blue's response to it.
So we started the first leg at about 4 o'clock each day.
Yeah.
And I never feed them right before I go out on a ride.
Yep.
So I always start a ride. He has hay ad lib at the ride, and then he goes for walks to pick grass and things like that. So we start the ride at about 4 a.m. and the first leg was about 40 to 45 kilometres.
Yep.
And then he comes back, he passes the vet check, and then he has a feed.
Okay.
And he'd have a feed then, and then he'd go back out and do the next leg, and then he'd have another feed after that leg. And if he finished all of that, we then gave him another one.
Wow.
It's really rare for an endurance horse to want to keep eating feeds.
Yep.
Often they get sick of it. They want grass. They want to eat grass and grass and grass and not want to touch any hard feed. So I was really impressed that even after 4 to 5 days of being in a yard or being ridden and not really getting a lot of grass in comparison to what he would eat walking around the paddock,
yeah,
he was still wanting to polish those feeds. And even when we got home, he still waited at the fence for a feed instead of going off and eating grass.
So he never lost that appetite?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So he is on the Gamma formula.
Yep.
And I think that has really helped him too.
Yep.
Another interesting thing with Blue in particular is he always really struggled to go to the toilet to wee.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I feel as though everything that is going on with his diet, obviously his stomach, his bladder, everything is more comfortable. He's now, happy. He was, one leg he went, I think, 3 or 4 times during the leg.
Wow. Yeah. So he had that proper hydration and then obviously that balance of the vitamin minerals throughout the performance.
Yep, definitely.
So with these 3 meals, let's take the listeners through in detail which of the components of the Sen products that you were using and how the response was from Blue.
Yeah, so during the event, the first and second feed he had no extra added supplements or minerals in there.
Yep.
He had a kilo of the Sen complete grain free. He had a kilo of oats.
Yep.
He had about 150 grams of lucerne chaff.
Yep.
Some salt, and he had 150 mils of oil in the first 2 feeds. And then the final feed for the day was when we added in the extra balance, the gold, the gamma, and an extra 50 mil of oil, because you'd mentioned that 300 mils was about the top to give him.
Yep, for that heavy work. And so this was over 4 days, every day for 4 days?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. And when Saasha, earlier this year, she approached us to redo the diet in terms of getting that lower sugar and starch level, incorporating the Sen grain free, but also we needed to work in with what she's experienced in the past. So she hasn't had a good response from lupins and needed an extra calorie source, which she was comfortable with feeding oats. And this is what's worked with Blue. Oats is a safer grain, as probably know from previous podcasts that we've done, safer than corn, safer than barley. But oats was providing that extra calorie source. Other endurance horses, they can be put on other calorie sources, but this really sort of, the amounts work in with the complete grain free and then balancing that whole nutrient profile. So comparing Saasha's old diet for Blue with the Sen feed program, you've got the high fiber, you've got good protein levels, lower starch, but then also the vitamin mineral profile was in slightly better ratios to what our theory is with feeding horses and getting that absorption right with the vitamins and particularly the minerals, but then also providing good fat sources like the Sen oil, which is high in omega-3, because you got to remember we've got to look after that hindgut environment, but also the immune system and joint health. And that's where the other products come into, like the Sen Gold, the Sen Extra Balance, and the Ulcer Protect. And they're really good for the whole digestive system and keeping that environment as healthy as possible through times of stress. Sen Gamma played a part in that as well, and that has a high antioxidant level, and this would really help in horses with heavy work, preserving that muscle mass or that lean muscle and helping with recovery and appetite. So the whole Sen feed program aim is to be fully balanced to just maximize that absorption when being digested. And I think, Saasha, you noticed that you were feeding a smaller quantity of feed but maintaining good condition and overall health compared to the higher quantities when you're previously feeding?
Much more quantity.
Yeah.
I think that he had the grain, like a pre-mixed grain,
yeah,
as well as way more fibre quantity-wise. So his previous diets have been more chaff-based.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
So oat chaff and lucerne chaff. And then after speaking with your advisors, nutritionists, they suggested to eliminate the oat and chaff, particularly because Blue does have navicular.
Okay, yeah.
So we went back to that, and the only reason he's on lucerne chaff is just an alternative to the lupins. And I guess for me it's probably a mental thing because it looks more like a horse feed when you add chaff to it.
Yeah, we really like to work with the client if they do want to feed chaff, just to reduce it down to a smaller amount, because you want to get more roughage or a roughage-based long stem source into the diet as opposed to something that's not as nutrient dense. And with respect to the navicular, you want all the nutrients in the diet to be in a good balance. So removing the oat and chaff, it wasn't really contributing to the overall nutrient balance. There was better nutrients to put into the diet, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to promote that sort of stamina and keep their appetite on track through that performance.
Correct, yes. And he did that. He performed every day fantastically. We had massage body workers looking at him every day, and from start to finish, they were absolutely thrilled with him. His attitude was fantastic. He ticked every box that you could ever want as an endurance rider.
Well, and the vet point checks, do they do, along the ride, how many vet checks do they do?
So we have a pre-ride vet check.
Yep.
And then there's one up to each leg. So all up for this event, Blue had 9 vet checks to pass.
Wow. Yep.
And during those vet checks, they check their gut sounds, their metabolic, their trot out, so their gait, their heart rate, they check their capillaries, everything.
Yep.
And he had all A's throughout the entire ride, except he had 1 B for gut sounds, and that was when we came in late on one night and it was cold and raining.
Oh,
he just hadn't had a chance to have a good drink of water and digest things to let them settle in his stomach. And he went back to his yard, had a big drink after the vet check, a big feed, and was fine after that.
Wow. And I think you mentioned to me that it's quite rare to have such good results with the vet checks through the performance.
Oh, definitely. It's not common at all for any endurance horse to do that sort of distance and get nearly all A's or a perfect logbook.
That's so good to hear, Saasha, of the condition Blue was in through the event. And as I see a photo of the logbook here, it's 9 vet checks or vet checkpoints that have gone through with Blue through it, and they go right into even the hydration, the skin recoil, his overall sort of health and assessment, and it's just simply amazing to see all those A's and just that 1 B, and you've got to be commended for your care and management of him throughout this event too. At Sen, we're just here to tick that nutrition box. There's many pieces of a puzzle, including the horse's ability, and we're just here to ensure that the nutrient levels are there to give him support and to be able to perform at his best. We are so happy to hear the great feedback from Saasha, and we know that that nutrient profile is really promoting the best overall health for the horse through this enduring event. So Saasha, how long have you been in the endurance horse industry?
I've been doing endurance since I was 8 years old.
Wow.
So nearly 21 years now.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And you're
I've my own horses since I was an adult.
And how many horses do you have?
We own 22 horses on our property, and we have roughly 8 to 10 in work a year.
Nice.
Brood mares, stallions, young stock. Every horse is on a Sen diet.
Oh, that's awesome. Really thankful for your support and feedback, Saasha, and even more so that you're an ambassador for Sen as well, because, I think the team was really impressed even before this result. And with the training involved with an event like this, I think we'll finish off this interview with a little insight onto how the training commenced before this event. Saasha, if you just want to take us through that.
So Blue's training started in February, and it was just a long, slow leg up from there to get him to be able to start that ride. So lots of time in the saddle and steady work at home.
Yeah, and it was important to start the Sen program at the beginning of the training as well.
Correct. I never change anything leading up to a ride. I would never change my diet, no matter what.
Yeah.
That close to a ride. So I actually started him on the Sen. Well, he started on the CF50 last year.
Yep.
And then just before Christmas, I think it was, we changed over to the complete grain-free, and he's been on that since then. So he had a good base establishment.
Yep.
Before then picking up the work, and we slowly increased the quantity of feed before we started the marathon, obviously, and as his training increased.
Yeah, it's really important to feed correctly up to the endurance event, because when you're in training, it's helping the metabolism of the horse switch to a fat source as the energy source. So what you want to do is have that metabolic switch from carbohydrate or starch and sugar metabolism to lipid or that fat consumption to being metabolized, because then you're going to store that glycogen stores back in the muscle and be used for those short bursts of energy. So then hopefully that translates into better performance, better stamina, but also better mental health for the horse, because they're not as tired or have that ability to use that energy throughout the event, as you saw, or as we've seen with your horse. He's come through that event very well.
Correct, yeah. And he only had the oats in the last maybe month leading up to the ride.
Yep.
So before then, he just ran on the complete grain-free and oil for his energy.
Yeah.
And then when I knew that we were starting to pick it up a bit, step it up, and that he'd need that extra energy for the competition, we introduced oats, and we introduced it slowly into his diet as we do everything else we feed.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Saasha. I think when it comes to a horse and looking at it as an individual, we're just here to tick that nutrition profile for them. It's only one piece of the overall profile, and you've got to be commended for your management of Blue also. And thanks so much for your time today to come onto the podcast and talk about Blue and the success you've had with Sen. Thanks, Saasha.
Thank you. I'm very happy to have found Sen. It's helping all my horses, not just Blue, but all of them have absolutely thrived on it. So I'm stoked.
So that wraps up episode 32 of the Sen Nutrition Podcast. We'll be back next week. I'll be back with Peter. If you need any further information regarding nutrition for endurance horses, we've got an endurance horse podcast. I think it's one of the episodes a few back. Also, an endurance horse article about stamina and how nutrition can influence that. And I'll put links in the show notes for you guys to check it out. Also, tag us on social media, Instagram, Facebook. Tell us about your success. Reach out to us, and we're really happy to help. If you've got any issues with your feeding or you need to try and reach a goal with your horse, we're really happy to help. So have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week.